Sometimes we feel stuck in life. Our ADHD wants to get to the exciting stuff, the things that we've been dreaming about, but we can't seem to make any progress moving forward. Our anxiety, our depression, our feelings of self-doubt, they gnaw away at us. Sometimes they feel like they're really chowing down. But we don't have to be a snack, not unless you really want to be. We can use our ADHD to get unstuck. I've done it multiple times in my life, and I'm going to show you how. Through the use of trebuchets. So let's start with a story. I was working my first job out of college as a newly minted engineer. The job duties weren't really my cup of tea. I didn't know that then that I had ADHD, but I know it now. It was a lot of analysis work. The pay wasn't that great either. We had several small children at the time. We wanted to be able to afford a house to have enough room for them. And so I started to apply to other jobs. I got a lot of no's. But finally, a recruiter called me and said, "Hey, how would you like to work at this place?" I was like, "Hey, that sounds amazing. I'd love to work there." So the day for the interview came. I was super excited. I was out in the parking lot of the office where I worked so that I could take this call and do this interview. We started doing the interview. The guy on the phone was really nice, but really brusque. He started asking me lots of questions, like figuring out calculations for engineering problems, and he was asking me to do it in my head. Again, I didn't know that I had ADHD at the time. We don't really do math in our head very well. And I was like, I can't do it in my head, but I can tell you how I would solve it, and this is the steps I would go through. He didn't seem to be very impressed about that. The interview was going absolutely awfully. I knew I wasn't going to get the job. It was just, you could tell in his tone of voice. So at the end of the interview, he asked the question that gives all the candidates enough rope to really hang themselves. The question is, what do you do in your free time? So let's switch gears a little bit. How does ADHD make us stuck? Well, ADHD, remember, drives us to do things based on our interests. That depends on dopamine. I've talked about this in a previous video. But just to give you kind of a summary, dopamine is a neuromodulator in our brain. It's the seeking hormone. So as we have dopamine, because we're interested in something, that dopamine molecule then turns into adrenaline. Adrenaline is required for us to move. So we have interest in something, we're seeking it, then we can move to go get it. The thing that stops us is usually fear of failure. Fear of failure comes from depression and anxiety. The funny thing about depression and anxiety is they're actually pretty well intentioned. We've learned from our past mistakes, from our past experiences. They're trying to keep us safe. Depression is worrying about things that have already happened. Anxiety is worrying about the future. And so we get into this vicious cycle of depression and anxiety and thinking about these things. The end result is rumination. The engineering principle that we're going to use to solve this is called Lyle's law of action. I'll get to that in just a minute, but let's go back to the story and finish that. So there I was in the parking lot trying to figure out what I could possibly say to this guy now that the interview was shot. Then I remembered something that I had done previously just a few months ago. Something at church. We called it man-making. So man-making was essentially a chance to just goof off and have a lot of fun. But I learned some valuable skills through it. We got together as a group of men and we did crazy, outlandish, fun things. We tried to teach each other stuff. We built stuff together. We did a Pinewood Derby car race without any rules. There was one guy who drilled out his Pinewood Derby car and filled it full of lead. There was another guy who duct taped his Pinewood Derby block onto an RC car. Another thing that we did was we built trebuchets. Trebuchets are like catapults. They're a medieval siege weapon. They launch stones, bust up castles, stuff like that. So I had designed a trebuchet using engineering and then built 30 different trebuchet kits. We all got together as a group, and for man-making, we built a bunch of trebuchets. And then we went out into the parking lot and we started launching stuff. They're incredibly accurate. That's the story that came to mind when I was on that interview. So he said, "What do you do in your free time?" And I said, I don't have any free time. And then I thought of the trebuchets and I said, well, actually, I just designed and built 30 trebuchet kits for a group at church. There was a pause on the phone and he said, that's amazing. I did my master's thesis in trebuchets. And that was the turning point for the whole conversation. We started talking about trebuchet dynamics, and before I know it, I got the job. And that is how medieval siege weapons can get you a job working at NASA Johnson Space Center. So what are the steps to really get unstuck? If you paid attention to the story, they're all in there, and I'm going to lay them out for you right now. Step number 1 is make something that lights you up. For me, it was trebuchets. The key is to focus on being a producer. Create something that you're interested in. Consumption has its place, but spend your energy on production. Remember, as ADHDers, we are hardwired to create things. Don't overthink it. Just do it. Just start. It's going to be wrong. That's okay. That's part of the process. And as you do it more, you will get better and better. Step number 2. Use what we're creating to serve others. What this does is it creates a strong purpose in us. Not only are we creating something that we're very interested in and that will keep us engaged, but we are doing it to help other people. That purpose will really drive us because naturally, as ADHDers, we are people pleasers. That can be taken to unhealthy levels. But when used correctly, we can be beneficial to the people around us and to ourselves. Step number 3. Fear of failure will probably hit us pretty hard at this point. That's okay. Failure is our best friend. It's our teacher. It's the thing that is going to provide us the most benefit because as we fail, we can find out what we did wrong. Then we can find ways around that. I talked about this in a previous video. It's about failing fast. I'll put a link at the end. With man making, we didn't worry about failure. Why? Because we were goofing off. We were trying to have the biggest crashes, the most spectacular explosions. Remember, failing spectacularly. You still learn a lot from doing that, and you have a great time in the process. Step number 4, ask for feedback. This one is kind of difficult because you want to ask feedback from people who know more than you do about that thing. Yeah, you can ask people who don't and get their opinion, and that's fine, but the point of the feedback is to help us get better. Remember, you don't know what you don't know. Step 5 is closely related to step 4, and that is say thank you. You've asked for feedback. They're trying to help you out. Say thank you. The temptation is to say, no, but I did it because of this, or I think you're not taking this into account, to argue or try and convince them that their feedback isn't wrong and that the way we did it was actually okay. Don't do that. Just say thank you. Write it down. Maybe it's the thing we don't want to hear that's really going to help us move forward. And finally, step number 6, tell people what you're doing. Be open about it. Talk about it. You might be able to find people that you had no idea that share that same interest with you. Bonds are created that way. For example, the interview that I told you about. I got that job because I built a bunch of trebuchet kits for a church activity. It was amazing. In fact, this trebuchet is the exact one that I built, and I still have it. That led to an almost 2-decade career working in aerospace, designing, building, testing, sending stuff into outer space, having a great time doing it. So we can use ADHD strengths to overcome ADHD weaknesses. Maybe ADHD is the thing that's getting us stuck, but we can leverage ADHD to be the thing that not only gets us unstuck, but launches us farther than we ever thought we could go. I have a bunch of videos where I talk about ADHD strengths and weaknesses. I'll put links somewhere. And till then, I appreciate you. Glad you're spending some time with me today. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one, where we engineer the crap out of ADHD.